Williams has gone all out with an ambitious launch for its 2025 F1 car. The event at Silverstone to reveal the FW47 shows just how far Williams has come from a disastrous situation 12 months ago when it was barely ready for testing. This time around it's so on top of the 2025 car it's shaken the car down and held a full launch with a one-off livery. Williams even went big with a proper broadcast and show, even if it was peppered with a little bit too much lightweight filler content at times. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon guessing whether the other sleeps naked or not is amusing, but is just shaded by the actual car in terms of what we want from a launch. The ambition came partly because it's always a risk to shake down a car for the first time on a live stream, especially on a bitterly cold morning with rain in the air, and have the radio between Sainz and his engineer open for people to hear. But Williams also pulled off something that didn't seem possible for this launch season, a conventional, proper launch. All 10 teams have been asked to keep their real liveries hidden until the special collective event at London's O2 Arena on Tuesday, February the 18th. Yes, we've already seen the 2025 McLaren on Thursday in a one-off livery, but that was very much a one-off livery. No sponsors on the car, one-off race suits, fairly low-key on that front. Williams played its version of that very smartly. This was a camouflage livery with slick black and blue detailing, missing some of the usual Williams accent. Up-close shots clearly showed the differences that meant Williams did what F1 asked by not revealing a race livery. But the design work was subtle enough that with the car being layered with sponsor stickers and details like the Duracell liveried airbox that will still be there when the covers come off next week, from afar it looked like a Williams. This meant a launch and filming day with a proper 2025 car in broadly the right colours, with its sponsors fully on display and images of all of that plastered across media coverage. For Williams and its partners, it's a handy win, and a sharp way to have effectively circumvented the biggest, most awkward limitation of this launch season. It also kicked off a new era for the team in a punchy way. The team will officially be entered as Atlassian Williams Racing in 2025 after signing a multi-year mega deal with the Australian software company, its first title sponsor since 2019. Atlassian is also joining as technology partner and collaboration software partner in what team boss James Vowles calls one of the biggest partnership deals in F1 and in all of sport. It'll be worth tens of millions financially, and Williams hopes that using Atlassian's products will also accelerate the modernisation of its working practices and infrastructure, which Vowles has repeatedly said are out of date. It's another big step into what Williams hopes will be a very successful future, and it further justifies why this launch had such a sense of occasion about it. Last year, the Williams build process was a shambles, putting the car behind schedule and overweight. Williams even launched without a car, only putting up valves in its drivers to talk, and the knock-on effects of a nightmare winter were felt a long way into the season. What we saw this time around was a far cry from that, as Williams becomes ever more fit for purpose as a modern F1 team. From the launch at Silverstone, here's Ed Straw to explain.
Williams team principal James Vowles describes the new car as testament to where we're going as a team. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, remember 12 months ago, they struggled even to get a car ready to go in the first test in Bahrain. This year, the car is running as we speak here at Silverstone, launched nice and early. So that's one big tick in the box, and that reflects the work they've done at the factory to improve the systems they've got to track the thousands of parts that make up a Formula One car. So they've invested heavily in that, although James Vowles says the big challenge of that will be next year for the new regulations in 2026. The car is also on the weight limit, and that is essential because last year they struggled. They were giving away 4.5 tenths of a second a lap early in the year, and that's despite the fact that they made their monocoque significantly lighter. The rest of the car, however, was giving away a huge amount of weight, and also the whole car is just put together better. Now, modern F1 cars, they have to be precise, put together to the micron in terms of how they're made and manufactured, and Williams has taken a big step in that regard as well. Now, of course, like everybody, they hope the car has more downforce, greater air efficiency, etc., but they also want the car to be better in yaw, i.e. when turning corners, less wind sensitive, so that'll make it easier for the drivers to extract that performance. Promising early signs for the car. Obviously they're running on the demo tyres, so you can't draw any conclusions from that, but just a really nice start to the year for Williams. Much lower stress than what we saw last year.
Now let's get into the details of the FW47 that Williams actually launched. Like with McLaren, we've seen the real thing, which is always helpful, and the biggest difference is confirmation of a key mechanical change. Williams is a Mercedes engine and gearbox customer, which also means using its rear suspension, but the rules allow older specifications, so last year Williams stuck with the 2023 Mercedes pull rod rear suspension when Mercedes switched to a push rod configuration for 2024. This was a pragmatic decision that allowed Williams to focus on its development work around a known platform and help with logistics like what spares Mercedes had available. But that came at a small performance deficit, and it came across a little second rate for a team with big ambitions to be using year-old kit. This year, Williams switches to the latest spec 2025 pushrod Mercedes configuration. The pushrod is at a very shallow angle, which increases the loads it's subjected to, but means the transmission housing just behind the engine gearbox interface at the centre of the car can be narrower. This will allow the flow from the side pod and engine cover to influence the flow towards the back of the car. You can also see how Williams has squeezed the inner body profile in this area to allow more air to flow through. Another change with the new rear suspension is the upper wishbone's forward leg inboard positioning, which should help the rear of the car pitch in too much. This could be a big advantage under braking, as it'll keep the height of the rear of the car more consistent, hopefully improving the driver's confidence at corner entry. But that depends on how the rest of the car works. It at least looks like a very tidied up version of last year's, with subtle to decent evolution across the top body surfaces and visible parts of the floor, plus the different rear suspension. There are subtle bodywork changes from the front to the back of this car. The front wing design has evolved and will have different loading from a revised trailing edge, while the transition from the section under the nose looks less pronounced and the leading edge seems to have been raised further outboard. This will all have an impact on how the airflow is fed further down the car, where the side pod shape has changed and runs longer towards the rear more smoothly than last year's shorter design. This should contain the flow over the top body surface better and direct more flow to the centre of the car, which could help feed the underfloor, especially near the centre of the car at low ride heights, making the car more consistent and user friendly. Similarly, some of the new floor edge details indicate that Williams might be trying to work the front corner of the floor harder, helping the main section of the underfloor produce more downforce more consistently. The engine cover cannons are bigger than before with less of an undercut, and the longer fin at the back of the cover helps highlight how the shapes have changed in that area. This suggests a reworked cooling package to get more of the internals lower in the car, reduce the car's centre of gravity, and open up space to better optimise the airflow. Alex Albon hinted at this when he said he was really impressed with the packaging of the car and described it as really well done. The car wasn't the only proper Williams unveiling at Silverstone. New recruit Sainz had the honour of giving the FW47 its first laps. This was the first chance we've had to speak to him since his move from Ferrari and hear from the team about what it's found since starting to work with the signing it was so excited about last year. It's a huge acquisition for Williams and a big gamble for Sainz, so how's it begun? Here's John Noble to explain fresh from hearing from the man himself.
So we finally got to speak to Carlos Sainz today. Very happy, very upbeat mood actually. We didn't get to speak to him after Abu Dhabi, so we spoke to him about the first test there, coming from a team fighting for wins, winning races, fighting for the Constructors' Championship, to a team that hadn't been on the podium. But he said he was quite impressed actually. He said it's clear the midfield teams have moved forwards, that now that half a second gap over the corners of the track is hundreds of a second per corner, but he's noticed a few differences, but he feels there's a team that's moving forwards. 12 months ago, the team missed a shakedown, the car was overweight, they would never have been able to put on a launch like we've seen today with this car, the confidence to hold a test in front of the media, in front of the cameras, everything live, and know that it's going to run. So this team's in a night and day situation. It says there is a kind of a mood of optimism. It's not going to be instant. We're not going to see this team stepping forward, fighting for podiums, fighting for wins tomorrow. But this is a team moving forward. It's got a new title sponsor. It's got two very experienced drivers. Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz are buzzing. They're getting on together. I heard a story last night that they were at an event, stuck in a corner, chatting about setups and ride heights and the intricacies of the car. So these things are kind of really important for this team edging forwards. And I think we won't see the full potential of Williams this season, but it's going to be a step. And that step is towards a future where this team could potentially get back to winning again in Formula One.